I became a millionaire at 34 by simply copying what smart, rich people already do. So this series is about breaking down their financial habits and lifestyles so you can copy them too. One of the big problems though is that there's so much data that people keep talking about that is so outdated that it goes all the way back to VHS tapes, and we keep talking as if that's how millionaires are acting today. One of the most popular studies that people like to talk about is one by Dave Ramsey that he did years ago, talking about the top 10 cars that millionaires drive. Well, when you look at that top 10 list, do you know what car isn't on there? The Tesla. That's how old that study is, because Tesla wasn't even around when that study was done, but you'll still see it being quoted all the time. So for this series, I'm going to be breaking down new data that is released by an exclusive millionaire group called Hampton. Each part of this series is going to break down how these millionaires live and how they make and invest their money. So let's jump into the study and figure out who these millionaires are and what their lives look like. Okay, so this is the official report from Hampton. I'm bringing you straight to the source of the data so you don't have to wonder if there's any kind of warped interpretation around it. This is exactly what they put out. So right here, right off the bat, you can see the majority of people have at least $1 million net worth. A couple were in the high six-figure range, but for the most part, lots of multimillionaires in here. And when we break it down, we can see that there were 89 responses total. And the majority of them, go anywhere from $1 million to $100 million, but 58% were in the $1 to $10 million range, which is really where I like to focus because that's where I am right now. So I'm trying to do things that people are doing right now just to get me to the next level. So the majority of these people, 89% of them, attained it through tech entrepreneurship and ownership in a private company. So these are entrepreneurs specifically in this group for the most part. A small percentage of them made their money in real estate or as an investment manager, and it looks like maybe one or two people made it through inheritance as well. So that's great. If you look at it right here, less than just about 2% of them, so really that's like, two people basically, made the majority of their money through inheritance. So unless you got a rich uncle or something that's going to be leaving you a whole bunch of money here pretty soon, this is going to be really relevant to you if you're someone who's ambitious and really trying to build your overall net worth to get to that $1 million level and beyond. Okay, so let's move on to the next part. So this is something that I thought was really interesting. One thing that I really love about this group, and I'll be looking forward to seeing the survey results, next year as well, is that this is a pretty young group of millionaires. You've got from the 26 all the way to the 50s. I mean, that makes up what looks like roughly 80 to 90% of the group right there, going from 26 to 50. So relatively young. These are not people for the most part who, bought stocks a long time ago, had a company pension and all that, and just sat and made it. And now they're all the way in their 70s and 80s and, real estate appreciated, and they just kind of, are that next door millionaire from the book. So these are people who are actively focused on doing things that are going to increase their net worth quickly. And that is the kind of people that I like to associate myself with. So this is something that's really interesting. Marriage is at a very interesting social point in our society. Dating is an absolute wreck. There's a lot of confusion with roles and marriage and divorce and all of these other things that are going on. So I find it interesting because this backs up a lot of other studies and data that we're seeing that 76% of these high net worth individuals are married and only 23% of them are single. And you have to think about the fact that, okay, well, if 23% of them are single, well, look how young some of the people are in this group. So there's a good chance that a lot of these people are actually probably interested in getting married. So when we look at data across the board, marriage is something that is proving to be an economic boon to net worth, not the opposite. And you go a step further into it and you actually see the fact that cohabitation does not have the same impact as marriage. And a lot of this comes down to societal factors. A lot of it comes down to expectations between the couple themselves. Cohabitating is not seen as, no matter how long the relationship is, as seriously as the bond of marriage is. And then obviously there are tax benefits and a lot of other things. So it's a very deep layered conversation that I don't want to get into too much for right now, but I do find it really interesting that this tends to really match up well with that overall trend that we continue to see, that marriage, and obviously staying married is a key factor in it. But even divorce statistics, by the way, are very much skewed because they talk about how, almost 50% of marriages fail. But what they don't talk about is the fact that that stat actually includes people who get divorced 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And once you get divorced one time, you're more likely to get divorced a second and a third time. So that stat is very skewed for a lot of different reasons. But anyway, we'll stay away from that for now. So they're 30-something and married. And this actually was kind of interesting. They roughly have two-thirds have kids at home. So again, this is a pretty young population that we're looking at here. The majority of them have kids, and they're not even kids that are moved out of the house. So, I really think that's something that's interesting. I know for me personally, having children was actually a productivity boost for me because it focused me. I did not realize how much time I had as a single guy, and even as, when I was married and we were dinks, double income, no kids. I did not realize how much time I had on my hands until I had kids, and then I was forced to try to squeeze everything out of my life. So anyway, that's something that I think is really interesting that goes along with this demographic. Okay, so now that we've met these millionaires and we have a little bit of an understanding about who this group is, where they are, this is new money for the most part. Now in the next video, we're gonna focus on how they think about money and what their overall mindset is towards building wealth.